Hello there, amazing viewers and subscribers, and welcome to a brand new Doctor Who review. And of course, I'll be reviewing the second ever Doctor Who story in, of course, my review series of me going to be reviewing every single story of Doctor Who from 1963 to 2025. And as of course, we are now reviewing the second story for Doctor Who, which is of course the Daleks, which is the debut story for the Daleks. Now, this review is going to be split into two parts. So this one is basically the original 7-part story in black and white. And then next week, I'll be reviewing, for next Monday, the Daleks in colour. And then, of course, I'll be going on to the third story of season 1, which is basically called The Edge of Destruction, the following week after. So the Daleks was basically broadcast from the 21st of December 1963 to the 1st of February 1964. Starring William Hartnell as the Doctor, Carol Ann Ford as Susan, William Russell as Ian, and Jacqueline Hill as Barbara. Now, this is so much better than The Unearthly Child. I really enjoyed this story over than the previous story, aka The Unearthly Child, which I did my review on last Monday, the 23rd of June. And today is, of course, the 30th of June. So, what can I say about the Daleks in colour? The pacing is very, 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 very difficult, because there are some scenes where they're like, yeah, okay, this is really good. And then the pacing does kind of slow down a little bit and stuff, which kind of makes it not good for an average viewer from today's standards. But as I enjoyed this story, it is honestly one of my favourite stories from season 1. So the TARDIS materialises on the planet Skaro. Now, this is before we knew it was Skaro. And of course, they materialise inside a dead jungle. So when they go around to investigate, they do find a little bit of a flower still survived. And of course, they find some dead animals that have turned into stone. And one of them is definitely reptilian, I should say. And then, of course, when the TARDIS team go to the edge of the edge of the dead forest, they see the Dalek city. And of course, with the Doctor wanting to go and explore the city, but everyone wants to go back to the TARDIS, he thinks he can go and literally try and trick them by trying to make the TARDIS dematerialise. And of course, it leads to a whole defence with the Doctor triggering the TARDIS to basically think it's running out of mercury. So he can literally trick the TARDIS team. They have to go into the city and have a look. Now, during this point in time, the TARDIS team succumb to radiation poisoning, which is kind of killing them. And of course, we do hear about the Fowls. So on this planet, the Fowls kind of drop these drugs to try and give the TARDIS team so that way they can try and survive. Now, the Doctor didn't know it was like drugs for them to help with the radiation sickness. So they kind of leave it in the TARDIS and they're going to investigate, where they all get separated by the end of part 1. And then, of course, Barbara gets taken down deeper into the city. And all you see is a sucker at the end, the sink plunger. And that's when the actual credits roll. And then, of course, you get into part 2 where they try and find Barbara. And then, of course, they come across the Daleks straight away waiting for them. And Ian becomes disabled for a little while because the Daleks kind of shoot his legs. And he goes, "My legs! I can't move my legs!" I do quite enjoy the Dalek voices in this story. I like William Hartnell's performance in this one, where they're holding on to Susan because she's there scared and the Doctor's just like, I don't know what to do here. This is the first time the first Doctor kind of didn't know what to do. And it's like, yeah, you know what? I'm actually enjoying this story. I love revisiting the Daleks. Now, the last time I revisited the story, it was back in 2023 for when I did my marathon from January all the way through to the November, for basically watching from Unearthly Child all the way through to The Power of the Doctor, just in time for the Star Beast. And I last watched this back in January in 2023. I have to be honest with you, I did quite enjoy it. Now, the Fowls, I do like the Fowls. I think they're quite cool. Now, the Fowls kind of do make a few more appearances in Doctor Who, until the last technically appearance was in 2015 for The Witch's Familiar and The Magician's Apprentice. But the last time they actually appear in Classic Who is, of course, in Planet of the Daleks on the planet Sparadum, which will become a review a bit later on, hopefully soon, after I get through season 1, 2 and 3. And 4, 5, 6, up until season 10. Now, when the Fowls are trying to ask the Daleks for help, the Daleks make Susan write them a letter, so that way they can try and trick them to kill the Fowls. Now, the TARDIS team does escape because they actually used one of the cloaks from the Fowls to actually take out a Dalek mutant and pull it onto the floor, where basically they can fit Ian into the Dalek casing and move around to pretend to be prisoners. Then, of course, at the end of the cliffhanger of part 2, you got the Dalek mutant just crawling underneath the bulkhead. And that's when it goes dun 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 dun. I absolutely love that cliffhanger to part 2. Or was it part 3? Part 2 must have been when they were going through the jungle. Yeah, definitely part 3. Now, I like when the TARDIS team do escape, because they use literally bits of food to make it like mud and rub it onto the Dalek eye so the Dalek cannot see. So in this story, the Daleks are basically being controlled through static electricity. So this is before the Daleks become way more menacing and before they leave Skaro, which is something I'm like, yeah, you know, I like the fact they use the energy against the Daleks against them. By the end of the story, the Daleks do get defeated. The Fouls kind of go and into their own sort of thing, with the Daleks kind of being destroyed, and the TARDIS team do leave. I have to be honest with you, this story is quite good. Now, for 7 parts, there are some quite good bits in it. Like, again, as I said, with the Doctor, Ian, Barbara and Susan and Ian kind of dipping the Dalek mutant out of the Dalek casing straight in to the actual bulkhead where it kind of crawls. Now, in this story, they aren't called Carleds, they're actually called Dals, because at this point, Terry Nation didn't change the name. It wasn't until Genesis of the Daleks they changed the name to Carleds, and of course, in this story, they were known as the Dals. So you've got the Fouls and the Dals, and the Dals kind of mutated into Daleks. So this is quite a good story for us fans to meet them, as it is a great Dalek story, and it's the very first one as well. So you can actually watch these all in chronological order, or you can try and watch it through timey-wimey vibes. Now, the music itself is quite good. I really do enjoy the music, especially for the Dalek City, that boom. It really sets the atmosphere. I like when the Doctor and Ian try to basically turn the Fouls into fighting by basically trying to pretend they're going to take one of the women to the Daleks so they can literally experiment on them, and the Fouls just actually punch in the face, which I do quite enjoy. I like some stories. Now, this is very good because we do see the manipulation of the first Doctor in the previous story, and of course that does continue on with the story, which is quite good. And the first Doctor does kind of get more manipulative a little bit later on during the season goes until he mellows by the course of season 2, but he's still very, very menacing. I like the first Doctor in this one because William Hartnell really plays the Doctor so good in this story, which is why I really, really enjoy it. So that's basically a little bit of the plot and stuff that I really do enjoy. So ranking this story, it is a 10 out of 10. I really enjoyed this story. Now, yes, as I said, it does kind of drag in certain parts where the pacing's a little bit off, but it was made back in the 60s, so I kind of let it go for that. And I have to give this one another A++++++++++, because I really do enjoy the story, and I really do enjoy the Daleks. It's such a great story. Now, if I could say what I prefer the Daleks in colour, but I wish the music would kind of die down in that story, which I will say in my review for the Daleks in colour next Monday, which would be basically the 7th of July. My review will be next Monday on the 7th of July. So I'm quite looking forward to basically giving that story a review, because I will be rewatching that story next Sunday. So for me to do these reviews, I watched the story the day before I actually do the review, so that way it's literally fresh in my mind. So yeah, this story is definitely 10 out of 10. It's definitely an A++++++. I really enjoyed it. It's just such a great Dalek story. It's really good for the second outing, and this is where Doctor Who became popular, because this is the start of Dalek Mania, and because of the Daleks being such a big hit, they came back twice in season 2, and during the time between 1965 and 1966 we end up having 2 spin-off films of these televised stories adapted into film length with Peter Cushing, which I personally don't know which one I prefer. I don't know if I prefer the Hartnell version or the Peter Cushing version, because I do like both. They are their own separate sort of thing. So Doctor Who and the Daleks, what can I say about it? Well, it is a good story. I highly recommend it just because it is the debut story for the Daleks. If you are interested in watching a story, I highly recommend it. You can actually get this DVD now re-released in Doctor Who the Daleks in colour, because it was released on Blu-ray in the Steelbook and the standard Blu-ray, and of course it was released on DVD. So I do try and collect everything Doctor Who, but I don't collect the standard Blu-rays for the stories in colour or the animations, because I collect the Steelbooks. But yeah, this story is absolutely brilliant. I really enjoyed the Daleks. So let me know what you think of the Daleks. Let me know in the comments section down below. Please do like, subscribe and share. And join me for more awesome Doctor Who content.